We, as always, are thanking our sponsors. We have more than 30 sponsoring companies at PDMI East this year. None is more important to me personally as the Chief Content Officer than the education sponsor, and that is Blue Water. Blue Water has now sponsored education at our last 3 events. We're very thankful for that. Wonderful support from them. They have a quick message to share with you here.
I'm incredibly proud to be the official protein bar of NASCAR.
Are you looking for an on-the-go travel
I feel like yourself. Life doesn't even work.
Get yours today.
It really works.
It's better on a Blackstone.
So thank you, Blue Water, and well played having your digital marketing ad here for the E-commerce Council. Our E-commerce Council, the PDMI, is led by Gregory Silvano of Buyist, who's moderating today's group. He's got a great panel, J.R. McElroy from AudienceXpress, Marianne Bautista from TurboRank. Marianne's one of our instructors for PDMI University. Classes begin April 30th, and we're looking forward to that as well. Greg, please take it away.
Cool. Thank you, Tom. All right, I'm going to start with the most exciting thing here and rattle off a couple metrics because I think they're important here. So we do e-commerce for about 80% of the direct response TV campaigns per year. So we have some insight of like where the orders go, year over year, what the trends are like. So I wanted to read 2024 compared to 2023, and there's a reason I'm going here. Looking at the top brands, these are all brands you'd know. I'm not going to say their names because I'm giving you some numbers. So one lost $5 million. They did $5 million less in 2024 than 2023. The next lost $1.7 million, so down 2024 to 23. Next one up 400,000, the next one up 500,000, the next one up 4 million, the next one up 5 million, the next one up 5 million, which answers this question, where are my customers at? There are customers out there, right? So it's not like they've disappeared. Can't say that 2024 is probably their easiest year ever. And when we did our prep call, I think we distilled it down to literally one word, fragmentation. It is kind of the heart and soul. It's kind of why they might have been up in 2024, but not their easiest year ever. So my first question is to you, JR, which is, if the issue or a contributing factor is the fragmentation, or as Tom described this in the description of the session, the splintering of consumer media, how big of a factor is it in your role? And maybe start with what your role is. Is that a topic that comes up a lot, and does it factor into how campaigns are run and really what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Completely. Just so for all of you guys who don't know what I do, I work for AudienceXpress, and we're really a media solution across all video media. So that's traditional linear, cable, and broadcast, as well as the streaming ecosystem. And 100% it's fragmented. I mean, I feel like this is now, I was in PDMI West, I was in PDMI last year, and everyone was talking about streaming and how do I get there? What should I be doing? In the video space, everyone's so used to television. But as we all know, it's diminishing, right? It's getting smaller and smaller every year as people shift to streaming. I think it really started to kind of excel during COVID when everyone was home. I always keep on going back to like my 80-year-old parents are pro streamers. They know all the difference between HDMI 1, HDMI 2. They know how to switch it back and forth. That I don't think would have happened if they were all home with COVID and all these like Netflix shows didn't come out. So while a lot of people started to adapt to it, and you're seeing the typical older cells, 25 to 54, even 18 to 40, they're all very proficient now in the streaming landscape. It's really hard to find your customer, really that audience, right, in TV alone anymore when you're looking at video, because they are on streaming and people are testing and trying it every day. So I would say fragmentation is definitely there, and how people go about it really needs to be testing and learning.
So your perspective, from your perspective, you see the TV side of it and the consumers, the consumer media side of it. The clients, your clients, if they come over from the linear world, are they just expecting linear processes to work?
So that's a part of it. Like, it is all video, right? But TV operates a little bit different than streaming, right? TV is one to many, and streaming can be more one to one. So it's really about understanding where your audience is, trying to use data to target for them, working with partners. I'll keep on going back. It's all about partnership, especially in these early days, to test and learn, and finding that audience. You know, just because it is all on the same screen, right? The customer doesn't realize anything, but we all know they activate and operate very differently. So trying to find that customer gets a little bit different within the streaming space versus TV. You also have to, and I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, incremental reach. The cost of an incremental viewer starts to get more and more expensive if you really look at your linear buy, because you're really hitting the same people over and over again. So it is really important, because it is so fragmented, to make sure you're in different buckets. And I'm sure, Marianne, you're going to talk to the social world, because that makes sense too, because they're there as well. It's really not just the old days of I can just go here and it be done with isn't there.
Right.
And it's really understanding where they are and understanding the strengths and weaknesses of TV and streaming. So again, you have data, you have that precision that people are used to in digital. We can be a little bit smarter and wiser about how we go and approach that streaming space.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So same question.
Yes.
You know, obviously JR goes from the linear world
Right.
to the streaming world,
Right.
and that's a big jump, right? It's a big jump in the strategy of a campaign when explaining that to your clients. Digital's kind of always been fragmented.
That's true,
Is it
but
more?
there has been some consolidation in certain categories. So I did this on purpose so that I would not mess up the statistics. So currently, for American consumption of media, this is not demographically, we can do that, but it's not this, for this purpose, it's not. 25% of your audience is in digital video, which includes what JR is talking about here with the streaming. And then you've got 20% in social medias, and you have 10% in streaming audio, 8% in web, 7% in gaming, 18% in traditional TV. And I believe their definition of traditional TV is broadcast and cable. So as you can see, digital video is the lion's share of where the American appetite is for media.
Where the consumers are hiding.
It's where they are. And then if you want to break it down just a little bit further, because I have to, the largest percentage of digital video is YouTube. Many, many people really don't understand that, and it's because it serves many, many masters, right? YouTube does a lot of different things, but it actually streams more video content in this world than anything else, more than Netflix. I don't even need to go any further. So, and then obviously there are some really important, JR is servicing
Across all demographics, right?
across
My kids
all
use it,
demographics.
I use it.
Well, the interesting thing about YouTube in particular is that millennials and Gen Zers use it as their #1 search engine. They go to YouTube first, and that's about 55% of the audience. Don't have to check on that one, I know that one for sure. But what's interesting is the older audience, and you were talking about your 80-year-old parents, the older audience is the fastest growing segment. 55 plus, even though I hate to admit that 55 plus is an older audience these days, the 55 plus is absolutely growing the quickest. And I agree with you 100%. I think that COVID was absolutely the moment where the older audiences cut the cord, learned about YouTube. It's not just cat videos. It's education, it's entertainment, it's discovery, it's fixing things, right?
Has it been figured out by advertisers?
No.
That wasn't a loaded question, by the way. It
No,
never came up.
it hasn't. It hasn't. It has been figured out by some very, very large, multi-billion-dollar brands. They get it. I would say more of the mid-market businesses absolutely have not figured it out. And
Why? Why? Do they go
Why?
after the
Because
sexier
it's-
things like TikTok?
because it's complex.
Okay.
Because it serves many masters. It is the #2 search engine in the world, is the #1 streaming sharing site in the world. It is a ad platform. It is a social media with engagement.
Yeah, shorts and stuff. Yeah.
However you come at it, and it's a little complex. That's what we specialize in. We do organic optimization and we layer in paid when appropriate. but it's a little complicated.
Okay, so
yeah.
fragmentation, word of the day, understood on the streaming side, understood on the social media side. When we did the prep call, I asked a question that I thought had an obvious answer, and I was looking, I'm like, old school DR, you kind of want that one thing that works and you don't have to worry about the more complicated things. And the question was, if you were a D2C brand today, in 2025, where do you start? And I hated your answer because it's the right answer. And what I wanted like TikTok, wow, YouTube, you know, there it is. But your answer was, and do you remember what it was?
I do remember what it was.
What is, if you are a D2C brand today and you're just starting out, where are the customers at? Where do you start?
Build an organic foundation across all medias, and that means SEO on your site. That means VEO, which is the video answer to SEO, video engine optimization, because of the 35% I just told you about. And then it is every social media, you need to have at least a solid foundational organic story to tell. And I have to back up a little bit, and this is one of those things I was telling you that, I didn't think about this at the time in the prep call. Really, if you're starting out, oh my gosh, do problem statement testing.
What's that mean?
Problem statement testing is, we just did it for our agency. We just started a new entity. We've been doing organic optimization in YouTube for 15 years, but we started a new entity and we did it for our new entity. It is simply coming up with, and ChatGPT is your best friend, come up with all of the statements that your target audience would say is their primary problem related to your solution. Okay, so we went through and we created 25 very simple ads, ran them in perfect rotation, not perfect, close rotation on Meta, on Facebook, and then we took a look at the response rates, and it was any engagement counted as a response. That was so valuable to us because we really saw that some of the things that we thought were gonna be the biggest problems were absolutely not the biggest problems. And it's not perfectly statistical unless you run huge numbers, but it's great directional.
But it filters out the garbage, right? That's DRTV.
It gets you to your top 10 problems.
Bingo. Yeah.
And then from there, and if you want to learn how to do it, talk to me. I can explain it pretty easily. But then you take that information and you weave it into your content. You weave it into your storytelling. Now, the next step, I think, is do the audit. Do the research within your category to know what the heck people are searching on. What are the words that they are using when they have a problem and they're searching for your solution? Then you weave in the problem statement in that way. And then you're really starting from a place of data and good information.
You know, it makes logic, I hate it less, thank you.
I know.
It makes logical sense because if the world truly is fragmented and they're here, 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 and here, if you have this unified message that you start from, you're not just hyper-focusing on Meta. You're not just hyper-focusing on TikTok.
And do you know why? The reason is that your potential target will jump from the ad they saw on CTV to YouTube, to Meta, to your site, and they literally will spend 3 or 4 seconds on each place. And if you don't look like you have your act together with a singular message, I mean, we're talking messaging, colors, creative, you need to look like you're buttoned up because credibility is everything at the end of the day. And that's another sign of credibility is that you spent the time to make sure that all of these places are delivering the same message.
And I think really to your point about it's the line, right? The through line. It's across all media. Really understanding what your media mix is and the power of each channel and how to utilize it. Again, keeping the messaging, colors, and the consistent creative, but really just understanding that through line so that you can, you know, dial up and dial back. And then when you get a real rhythm going, you can really look to then ramp up in one versus the other based on that product, right? Because what works for one product may not work for the other.
Never.
Test, constantly.
So one of my next questions was for you, but I'm going to come back to it because I want to go to creative, which you can both talk about. So I actually wrote this down. If you walk from the pool to the building here, you'll see the dish area where they're doing meetings, and there's a banner up atop.
Right.
And I wrote it down, and I might be totally misinterpreting what their tagline means, but I'm going to reuse it for this one because I think it works.
But that's a problem if you are.
So their tagline on this banner says, "Where art meets audience." Okay, so that's the dish, where art meets audience, which to me begs the question of creative. Customers are all over the place. They are, video is, TV is video, video is everywhere, right? That's the deal. In terms of creative, what's the story? Is it more important than ever? Is it less important than ever? Is it unchanged? Like what would you have to consider when it comes to creative and the story that you're telling?
I think what's even more important than that is just staying authentic. I really do. I think that's more important than anything. There's tons of testing that's been done for AI versus real human. I'm a big negative AI video person. I don't like it. I'll never use it personally. I can't recommend it to a client. I love authentic talking head stuff that is consistent and credible and authentic, but that's not for everybody in every situation.
So if I make a video for YouTube, can I slap it on TikTok, slap it on Instagram, slap it on Facebook?
Yes, you must start. We believe in YouTube first production theory. Start with your horizontal, leave plenty of space on the sides, and then it can be easily repurposed to all the other vertical applications. It's much harder to go the other way. You've all opened up a YouTube video and you've seen those black lines down the side and you think, amateur. So it's really better if you can start with a horizontal first aspect ratio.
So JR, on the streaming side, is it different from linear creative?
Yeah, I would say it is. I think in the streaming really is predominantly 15s and 30s. People even try to do 6s, believe it or not. And I think the audience is very used to length. So sometimes the longer you go, it might get a little bit out of place, and their attention isn't there, right? And remember, in as well as TV, right, on the big screen, that's when attentiveness is up the most. So, the 15s and the 30s can be a challenge within the performance space because a lot of creative tends to be 60s, 120s.
Hard to get that CTA in on a 15.
Correct. I would say 30s and 60s have worked 120s. Not that it's not done, I just don't think 120s have really been in the streaming space for that long. I think the streaming space is consistently evolving, so talk to me in 3 years and let's talk about what the state of streaming looks like and how it compares to TV and how we've kind of gotten buttoned up and gotten smarter and wiser to it. But 15s and 30s are kind of key.
I really think, I had an experience just this past weekend and I was sort of mind blown because I don't watch a lot of cable TV. I know, imagine. But my daughter was in town and we had a mom-daughter fun moment and we watched a little bit of Hunger Games, which harkens back a couple years. We watched, and I counted through we watched 7 minutes of content and up to 17 banked commercials. So we got the next 7 minutes of content. And I thought to myself about you, I thought, there is no way a CTV audience would tolerate this, and no way that audience is also going to tolerate it for long. And so where are they going? They're going to other mediums. I mean, I kind of think they're doing themselves a terrible disservice, and I won't mention which cable channel it was, to protect the innocent here, but yeah.
And I would say that also the pods are much smaller.
Yeah.
So people smaller pods, what is nice is you're seeing less of that black space, but you're seeing more actual response because more people are really adapted to it. But I think that's what people are used to right now. Again, what happens in 5 years, right? Maybe they get longer. Who knows how it all morphs. But I think for effectiveness, like 30s, 60s can work. There's also cost implications too as you get into the bigger.
There's a quality factor too. If they were doing, take a long form commercial from a decade ago, there's a quality factor in that production, and they would slice it into 120s and 60s. If somebody's coming in with a 15-second spot, is that a lower? Are you seeing that as they didn't put that much effort into the spot originally and they're just trying to cram them out, or is it still well-produced content?
I mean, it can be well-produced.
Yeah.
It has to be well thought out, right? And I don't pretend to be a creative person, so if anyone's in here, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on toes.
But you have the microphone.
Yes. But again, for streaming, the clients that I work with, they typically have 30s or 60s. 15s is hard to get a message across when you want someone to do a reaction. I also think it's really important to lay down the branding too, because a lot of times you just can't assume going into streaming hot and never having that brand awareness being built up first before the message is resonating. So especially when you go to a new medium, and I think streaming can be new for many advertisers or clients who are here at PDMI, there is some sort of brand recognition that you need to build up too, so that when they see it, they're knowing what to do and what kind of conversion, what they're supposed to do on the back end.
And you know what happens with these shorter ads, you maybe need more frequency.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So what happens with ads in general, and DR ads specifically, about 10 to 15% will actually follow your CTA. They'll go to your site, they'll fill your form, they'll do whatever. 25 to 35% go to social medias or search. They do a search, they try to, if they have a question, are they real? Does it come in red? Does it really grow hair? Whatever, I wanna see some social proof. And then the rest of them don't do anything. So we gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah. I always say, like, who's your friend or foe? Is it reach or frequency? You really have to start looking and evaluating, even in the streaming place, because there's many ways to stream a cat. You can go by device, you can go by, fast channel, you can go by AVOD. It gets very complicated, OEM. Like, there's so many different avenues you can go. You can do the whole shebang, but if you do that, it's a big universe. So, a smaller budget's not gonna go that far. So it's really understanding, maybe you start narrowing it, go a little bit smaller and build up a frequency before, and test. Like this is, I keep on going back to, and I've been saying it at lunches, and if you've sat with me and you met with me, you're probably hearing it again for the second time. It's all about partnering with your vendor or partnering with your agency who's really gonna hold your hand and explain to you the differences, and not being so knee-jerk if it doesn't work for the first week. I see a lot of people just pull, it's not working. And I get it, because it's a way that a lot of people are used to conducting business. But I think you need to let it ride for a month or so. Try to hit a stride if you can. Optimize as you go along. The beautiful thing about streaming and digital is you can optimize and you can tweak along the way. It's really just partnering with someone that you can have an open dialogue. And again, sharing your successes with them, sharing your failures so that everyone can be smarter and wiser about it.
And watch what's happening everywhere else.
Yes.
Right? I mean, see what's happening on your site, see what's happening on your socials, see what's happening with your search traffic.
So you mostly answered this question. I'm going to ask it in a more pointed way. If I'm a DRTV tried and true marketer, I know linear TV, streaming CTV does not have the ROI, is what I'm going to tell you when I walk in the door. You walk into my door, I'm going to say it doesn't have the ROI of linear TV. What's the right response to that? What's the reality of that?
So I think there's two realities. One is it's no longer kind of like last touch, or that last call is necessarily being driven by, or even in social, right? It may not just be that ad in social. It's a combination of everything that's been out there, right? Omni-channel and multi-touch attribution really can not give the credit where it needs to be given, or give the credit if you look at it in a holistic place.
Is this where MMM comes in?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
100%.
Go on.
So again, more of this media mix, understanding how it all interacts, how it reads, what's working for your product or brand. I think also a lot of times with streaming, the ROI or the ROAS doesn't look as favorable is because there's two different price points. And I get it, but sometimes, again, I go back to that incremental reach. Let's look at the cost of what it really is going to cost in TV to get that incremental reach, or even social to certain points. Some people are maxed out on social, so to get that incremental viewer, it's much harder and it's more costly. But if you go into streaming, that actually might be the same cost in some cases, as well as...
But more trial and error? Is it?
It can be a little trial and error, but
maybe
it's
more
also
optimization.
Yeah, optimization
So,
and
yeah,
targeting and data. Again, remember, TV is one to many, and when you get into streaming, you can really start to hone in and be smarter about how you're doing it. It's no longer spray and pray.
So that's just it. I think in my mentality, just having dealt with or worked with these DRTV vendors for a decade, and we're not involved in the media side of things. So I don't personally know, the difference between linear and CTV. I know what the chatter is about it, right? These guys, I believe, are used to hitting a grand slam. It's not at base, on base, on base, on base, on base. And when they do start to, they'll do some testing to find one that might be a grand slam, and then they will work on the grand slam. And grand slam being they ran a bunch of linear TV, there was enough of a response, so they spend more and
they'll
more.
run it into the ground.
Exactly right, exactly. So is the, I
It's
don't
a
even remember what
one-legged
my question
stool.
was, but it's along those lines. There's no CTV streaming grand slam. Is that a safe?
No, I
strong.
think, no,
It depends
it
on
can,
what your
yeah.
goal is.
Yeah, and I also think it can be, right? I think you have to test to figure, and I was just literally coming out of a lunch when we were talking about, you have to test it to find the right kind of like makeup or chemistry of that particular campaign. Just because it works for one doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for the other. And I think we're all learning in it together. You know, this is where I go back to this partnership because yes, you have great TV, and listen, I sell TV all day long. Like you can come there. Like it does very well for people. I'm not saying don't do TV. I think it's a combination of understanding the evolution of where video's going. And that box that everyone's used to looking at is not just TV anymore. The consumer doesn't know it, but we have to know it. And we have to be smarter about how we go about and target and buy.
And what's growing?
Yes.
What's growing? People are moving from, nobody's doing, I hate to say this out loud, print very much anymore. And where have they gone? They've gone to digital video.
Yeah, and just one last thing, like I would say, when we're moving to the TV, like we need to, and I just lost my point, sorry, go, I just lost my point, sorry.
Totally fine.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back.
It'll come back.
It'll come back in probably 2 seconds.
After you ask the next question.
Yeah.
So you touched on something that I think is important to communicate, is that when it comes to linear TV, there was a learning process because these answers didn't come with the advent of television advertising, right? Direct response advertisers got very good at TV attribution and figuring out what commercials were working, which ones weren't, and that didn't come instantly. It took, I'm sure, years, if not a decade, to figure it out. And that's what we're going through with CTV and linear. We're figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now, there will be this known process that just, oh yeah, the guys back in 2020 figured this out.
That was before we taught consumers to be skeptical.
Yeah, or force them to be skeptical.
And that they can get anything they want, whatever they want, when they want it, at the touch of a button.
Yeah.
So they just do not, I've had this personal experience, I know many of you have, they don't use offer codes, they're not gonna go to your website, they're not gonna go to your /URL. You have to be where they wanna go, where they're comfortable going to get more information about your offer.
Yeah, and to your point, and this is actually the point I did want to make, so you were so right, it's going to come back to me. Yes, people have been doing TV for years and years and years now. It is fine-tuned, and now we have this new little channel, I mean, big channel, but it's like, it looks the same, it feels the same, but it operates a little bit different. And we're learning about it, and it's changing. Like, I mean, I could tell you 5 years ago what the streaming landscape looked like versus what it looks like now, and how much more in-depth it is, and how much more you can really dial things up and back.
The levers
where are we going to be?
available.
The levers, but where are we going to be in 5 years from now? And as people have adopted it, like, you're going to see, people are going to get savvy. And I keep on telling my team, is like, we're doing linear, we do it great, and you know, you can use data and be smart about how you purchase linear, and if you want to talk to me about that, I can talk to you. Talk to me after. But when it comes to streaming, that's where I want to be forward and learning and moving and talking, because in 3 years from now, it's not going to be okay to be like, oh, everyone went to streaming and now I have to figure it out.
Which goes to the
Now's
partnership
time
thing
to
you were
figure
talking
out,
about.
yeah.
It's and I think you mentioned on the call there, you've had clients that held back things from you. Like they didn't,
Yes. Well, not that they held back. Everyone likes to keep their information to themselves. So I can only be as good as I am told if I'm not doing the attribution. And so therefore, if they're doing attribution and it's working, great, but what's working? There's so many different things that could be working in a campaign. So the more I know, the more I can help optimize and maybe even sweeten it and ramp it up extra, or vice versa. If it's not working, not knowing, maybe only a portion of it. Like maybe, and I always use this, I had a campaign on once, and it was a product that was probably more C and D county than A and B, and they were running a lot on Apple TV. Now,
Go figure.
it wasn't doing so well, but like maybe it's because Apple TV, the
highly
composite,
urban.
yes, it's highly urban, it's very A and B. Maybe their consumer wasn't there. Maybe we needed to go to a Roku, or we needed to go, to a different channel within streaming. I couldn't have known that unless I was able to look at it or see where all the results were coming from and where all the results weren't coming from, to be like, maybe we should tweak that. Again, partnership, then you can manage and optimize.
Do you find when clients come in on the streaming CTV side that they have self-served it initially before coming to you? So one of the things I've always thought about linear
DIY'd it.
TV is that the bar is pretty high. It's like nobody sits there thinking, I'm going to go buy my own TV commercials. They just assume you need an agency, and there's this level of professionalism and expertise that goes along with it. But then along comes, Meta ads and Google ads, where anybody can go and click a few buttons and your ads are live. And there are platforms that will allow you to do a streaming CTV.
Yep.
Do you find that people try those first before coming to you, and then you got to undo a mess, or is it pretty?
I think it's a mixed bag. I would say a lot of the people I work with come to us are really curious and want to learn and want to understand. Some do come in with a very, this is how I buy TV, and this is how I'm going to buy streaming, and it's going to work this way because it's all in the same box. And I'm like, okay, I can work with you on that. But I do.
Can you?
Yeah, I can. I'm pretty adaptable. But I would say, again, the people that are curious, and I hear a lot more people asking questions now, and they're not necessarily activating. I use this too. I keep on talking about my parents. They must love it. Thank God they don't come to these things. They're afraid to, think about your parents who are 80 years old. They're afraid to go on the computer that they might break it. And so they don't go on at all, and then they're not learning. And I feel like a lot of clients, especially the past, year or two that I was talking to them, almost are afraid of what they don't know, and they're afraid that I might not do it right, or I'm not going to get the same results. Instead of kind of being like, I don't know what I don't know, but I know this is how it used to work. And also, a part of my job, I feel, is to let them know it's okay, that it actually isn't that different, and that it really is like a language translation, translation, where you can speak TV, you can figure out streaming. It's not that big of a jump. It just has little nuances, and because you understood TV, you'll understand the nuances, and actually, you can be smarter about it because you understand those nuances, and you can then tweak it to be better. But again, goes back to partnership and being open to understanding it.
And attribution. So go back to.
Oh my gosh.
Go back on attribution. So you talk about customers are out there. They're fragmented, they're splintered, they're all over the place, which makes attribution more difficult.
Impossible.
So what is that conversation with clients to explain that, and also explain there's the panel before this. One of the guys said, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to get it exactly right, but we're good.
Well, I think that if I had the answer, to attribution, I'd be on a beach in Tahiti.
Exactly. You'd be in Miami right now.
I would not be here working for a living.
It's true.
No, I think that we talked a lot in the pre-meeting about a startup, and I think the beauty of a startup is there is no noise, right? And so you can very carefully set things up and layer them in and layer paid in as you learn.
Noise, you mean existing?
Yeah, exactly.
Content
You're not getting 50,000 hits to your website in a given month or whatever. So I think that's the beauty of a startup. I think that you have to just go slowly and watch everything, and record keeping like crazy. You're keeping all the data and watching all the indicators as they go forward. But alluding to what I said earlier, or referencing what I said earlier, I mean, honestly, people are trained to know that they can think they can get what they want whenever they want it. And I think many people resist the call to action now and don't want to, I know that's a ploy, Oh, I know they're going to, if I go to the website, they're going to retarget me and hunt me down forever. So I think that it's a little bit of a, I don't have the solution. I wish I did. I think you just have to go slowly and learn carefully.
I don't think anyone has the solution. If that makes you feel better.
I know I've tried a bunch of different things for some of our clients, and I know we've gotten parts of the picture here and there. But an MMM, I think, is probably the smartest thing to do if you can afford to do that. And that's a medium mix model, in case some of you don't know. And honestly, you have to have at least a year's worth of data, and you have to commit to feeding that beast every single month going forward, because it will change. And then that will give you a pretty good indication of what you should be spending at the various medias, at the various levels of the funnel.
That has to take budget.
Oh, yeah, it should. It should
Okay.
take it fairly early on in your business cycle. I have a client that has been around for 60 years and just is doing their first MMM.
So if you're a D2C brand, if you're an upcoming startup D2C brand today, how much money do you think you need in the bank?
Well, we talked about this a little bit. I think that if you are a solopreneur, you can probably start with maybe even $10,000, and I would spend that in social organic development so that you really have a great base. But I think that if you are corporate, I think that you are looking at, mid six figures minimum.
Build that awareness.
Yes.
All the channels, right? So like you looking to, go big or go home, right? Like, and again, I get it. It's not my budget, so I get it.
Well, it's go big
But,
and go
like,
home or fail fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But there's
Lose your
ways to
shirt.
do it very calculating and very
Yep.
smart, where you can let your money go a lot longer than just like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I think you're understanding the media mix is just one caliber. Even if you're not testing and learning, I think to test, it doesn't have to be a lot of money, especially if you're using data and you're working with someone that can really help you fine tune what you're trying to get. There's just ways to work around it.
Does that old schedule of we're going to run media for 2 weeks, we're going to run TV, linear TV for 2 weeks, wait for some drag, and see what resulted, is that still a similar kind of methodology in the multi-touch world?
I think it depends. Again, it's multi-touch, so like you don't necessarily know exactly where it's coming from. I think it's like a halo effect, right? Like your brand's airing, it's across the multiple channels. What I can say is when you do go typically on video or go on screen, so it could be streaming, it could be television, but stream, there's a credibility that your brand does start to get, right? People who see spots on the big screen on TV, they really are on glass, I should say. They really think of them as a more credible spot because they're there versus all the various other noise where they can be.
Yeah.
So I think, but you need all the other various noise, right? Because that builds the whole brand awareness. And some people, that's all they are on. So like, you just need a little bit of
I
mix
think
of all
there's
of that.
some assumption that there's some vetting that has taken place to get to the big screen. But I'm not sure that's going to hold forever.
Yeah.
You've mentioned in passing the agency as a partnership and with the client. Let's talk about it officially. What's a ideal? So you get a new client today, whatever size, whether they're a startup or an existing. What can they do to allow you to do your job the absolute best? And I'll ask each of you the exact same question. What's that amount of information? What are the things you need to know? What do they need to have for expectations, that perfect relationship?
I think it's understanding two things. What's the objective of this campaign? What they're looking to get out of it? What the product is?
Are they reasonable usually? I mean, are they?
I think for the most part they are. No,
Okay.
I think that there is.
Not to paint clients as the
No. Like,
bad guy.
they're not
worst
the big
thing ever
bad
here.
wolf.
Yeah,
No,
there are no clients here, right?
Yeah,
No.
exactly. They're not the big bad wolf at all. I think you want to understand their passion on their brand so you can bring that same passion on how you help them and how they succeed. And so you need to establish what that KPI is going in and then really work with them and explain to you your product so that they understand where they can potentially air, what they can potentially do. Understand the scope of what they're looking to do too, because budgets come in all shapes and sizes, and you wouldn't want to spend a small budget on a ton of supply across multiple devices. You'd really want to hone in on what that objective is. Then it's also establishing a flight, right? Again, 1 to 2 weeks, I personally don't think is enough time to really build something up and to see what works and what
get a
doesn't
good
work.
read.
Yeah, to get a good read.
So what is?
I think a bare minimum, 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And I'd say, and looking at the data, one of the great things about streaming is just that it's digital. You get the results back faster. You can see what's working.
Remind me to ask what data is different between linear and streaming. Like what's new data that we can use that we didn't have before? But keep going with the agency one. I'll forget that.
So yes, remind me too, because I'm going to go on this line and
It
this
was
tangent.
something.
But you're able to work with someone to say, all right, these, especially what I do, which is multiple suppliers, this is where it's working. Let me dial this back. Maybe I dial these networks off, or maybe I ramp up on this device. Maybe I need to go into a different DMA. Maybe I'm seeing more results from certain part of the country versus others.
That's a lot of the same stuff that you would be used to in the linear world, right? Those types of strategic optimization decisions.
The great thing with these strategic optimization, there's a lag time in linear television, and you don't have that in real time. Sometimes that makes clients think, well, then I need to pull it back. But when you're on a new channel, you need to let it ride. You need to kind of get a stride going so you can figure it out.
A certain amount of commitment.
Exactly. But at the same point, you can also test in campaign by a day. I can test one thing tomorrow and then test something completely different 2 days, or like multiple things on one day and see what works.
Yeah, it's funny. That's a great, I don't know, differentiator is not the right word, but with streaming CTV, it's real-time metrics, but it doesn't mean real-time reactions. You still need time to let things happen and evolve.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And then I think once you get that stride going, it's easier to make bigger or smaller optimizations to fine tune. But you really have to get there. I mean, I had a meeting earlier this morning where the client was like, "I really do want to learn about what's going on. I'm not 100% sure." I'm like, "Well, it doesn't have to be a big budget. It could be small. We're starting with maybe one market, and let's test and learn together. We'll let you know what's working, what's not, and then you share with us." And that's the ideal. Someone who says, I have time, I want to try to figure this out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But a lot of times we can fine-tune, tweak, and make it be successful.
So the question was that kind of partnership. So on the digital side of things?
Right. Who is a good client, or how do we work together?
Yeah, what's an ideal scenario? If I'm a new brand coming up, and what should I be prepared for in your world?
Well, first off, in terms of time frames, we won't even accept an account that's not willing to stick with us for 90 days.
Okay.
So, because in organic, it really does take some time for us to train the algorithm who the heck you are and what you're doing. So our process is we start with a deep dive audit. The audit lays out the entire roadmap for what we're going to recommend in terms of content, cadence, keywords, and then we add in marketing. And it takes a little bit of time for that to really grab hold. But we also track every metric. We track the views, we track the impressions, we track the click-throughs, we track the average view durations. All of these are important metrics. So, but you need time. And the beauty of YouTube in organic is that it looks like this. It goes like this. It snowballs. It's not a paid, we see that all the time when somebody brings us their paid numbers and they stopped their paid and it fell off like a cliff. With really good organic that you're consistent at, you just snowball. And the truth of the matter is it makes everything else work better. You get lower cost PERs across the board when you have solid organic.
Marianne just talked about metrics, which reminded me to ask you
Go back to the
on the
metrics.
streaming side of things. Are there new metrics that are meaningful, right? So I'm sure every platform wants to talk about these new metrics that they have, but at the end of the day, they don't help you move the needle. They don't actually help you get more sales or more conversions. Is there a new thing that was not in the linear world, but is actually useful in the CTV world?
I would say what's useful in the CTV world is kind of the speed and accuracy that you're getting the information back, and the way you're able to, from a national basis, be able to look at it where everything's airing cross-country, right? A lot of these metrics you can eventually get in linear, but it's like how many weeks out can you get it? And then you're kind of grading yourself weeks after the assignment already was in,
You can derive it later, but you don't
But should
necessarily
you react
get it.
to it?
Yeah. You don't know to react to it, and maybe your next campaign, and now you're and then that's
Maybe
how people have
setting
learned.
some benchmarks and saying, look, I can tolerate this until this point, and then at that point, I need to stop and reconsider and maybe make a pivot.
Right. And to your point, people have been doing TV for so long, so these metrics have already been established. So within streaming, what we're seeing is a great ideas of what devices are working, where you are running within supply, what your video. You're seeing all these metrics that are helping you put it together.
Do they help? So let's take devices. Is that paralysis by analysis? I mean, is it just, it's a point of data, but my God, let's not go that
No, I don't. So
narrow?
I think,
Narrow?
Again,
Yeah, I can't imagine that. The device matters.
Yeah, in some cases, depending on the product, it may not matter as much, but in other cases, again, depending on the budget, what the product is, you want to make sure you're on the right device, that your audience is going to be in there. This data really comes into play. I think it's really important to partner with someone who has the supply, also partnering with someone who has data to back it up or to help guide you through that process. Really important, especially that's what it's made for. We have data that we can use. Why wouldn't we? I think if we had the data in TV, people would have been doing it forever if they had that same precision.
Have the platforms themselves gotten better at delivering or targeting? So, for example, used to be meta ads. You would, finely tune it, and you would, the digital marketer had to have this skill and this art to really get the ad in front of the right person. But now a lot of them just choose broad and let Facebook figure it out, right? And it seemingly does a better and better job, as the years go on.
Yeah, it learns from its experience.
Yeah, so has that on the streaming side, and I'll ask on the digital side, on the streaming side, is there an increase in quality of delivery, like who is being targeted? Do they offer any sort of tools, or does it still take a lot of work on your side to do that kind of strategic analysis of the data?
Where we can put your ads. We work with clients on doing that. We have Comcast viewers. Look at where the viewers are coming from. We have that information. So the evaluate audience that you're looking at. Ultimately, that's what you're Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. It's in my pocket, by the way. We were just talking about dresses with pockets. They're a fabulous thing.
Repeat everything.
Yeah, exactly. Did you repeat the question again, actually?
The question, are the platforms getting any better
Targetability.
at delivering
Right.
target or doing the analysis, strategic analysis themselves, or does it still require?
I know it requires some work. I think that you have all this data. You have to make heads or tail of this data. I think the most important part of what you can do in streaming is get the data and get it relatively quickly and very concise and very in depth. And I don't think it's being like uber crazy to go down and being super granular to look at the device level, because I think you can have that precision. It's all the things basically you wished you had in TV that you now have in the streaming space. Utilizing it does make you smarter. Again, you don't have to be super uber targeted. Like I've found that sometimes that can not work either. I like to say we like to cast a smarter, wider net. Using data, but not letting that be the only sole thing, because sometimes lightning in a bottle happens like very serendipitously, and it's not anything a data is going to share.
Same question. So on the digital side.
Yes. The AI, generative learning, has made the algorithms smarter, faster, and they do use what they have learned and factor that into the additional buying. However, what I find is that you still need an analyst who's going to layer all of those data points together and tell a story and make a recommendation based on that. And I don't believe that the machines are doing that well
Well,
yet.
they wouldn't know. I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you're relying on Meta to optimize the ads, Meta doesn't know your entire strategy.
Right.
It doesn't know what's happening on other platforms.
Right.
It doesn't know your story. It doesn't know anything except what's happening on
And it
Meta.
wants to grab all the credit, by the way.
Of course. Oh,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. They have a Facebook account? It was ours. We did it.
But this also talks about the partnership part, right?
You love that one, huh?
I do, because I really think like an algorithm isn't a partnership.
No,
It
right.
does a lot of things well.
Right.
But to your point of understanding the full scope of what the overarching brand campaign is in bigger picture than just that one channel is really important. And when you have those conversations, you can learn a lot more about the brand, or to your point, like you have an analyst, like you can optimize on it once you see the data and it's coming in quicker and faster. That's where the partnership comes in, because there's a lot we can do, but we can only do as well as we know.
Right. Last question, Tom, so that you know. This is one we actually didn't talk about. It just came to me while we were talking. Has the funnel
Pop quiz, yeah.
Pop quiz.
and go. Has the funnel changed? right? We've talked about how it's so multi-touch now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
is that does that factor into, into the whole attribution side of things? Does it factor into the conversations with the clients to explain that this is not 1995 anymore?
Yeah, I love
has
the
it
funnel.
changed? So
I love the funnel conversation because I love to go top down and bottom up.
Okay, go on.
And for
Explain.
me, it all starts with incremental reach. As I mentioned beforehand, at the social level or at the bottom, conversions go to the top where all the branding is. Incremental reach costs, and it's really when you're doing both really, really well. You really start to see the cost of that incremental reach go up. And I think it's important to flip either down or to flip up to do the reverse, right? So if you are social only, great, social is doing well, but maybe it's worth now taking those same digital smarts that you have and looking to target in that next level, hitting that brand, the glass, if you will, trying to build up there, getting a little bit of a new audience or meeting them where in another step where they might have been more complacent in doing something. Now they're seeing it here, and great, guess what? Not only is your brand awareness going up, but now they're gonna do some sort of conversion. Or from the flip side, when you're at the top, when you're just doing branding a lot and you're looking for some conversions, you've maxed it out, maybe we should get a little bit more specific. Really start speaking to that target audience that you want. Using all the great data that you have to be very precise on what you're doing, and then retargeting those same people because you have that ability to retarget them on display or in social or on OLV, where they're about 70% more likely to go and convert to something.
Do you find that those conversations with the clients, that's well received? Like, do they? It's a fairly complicated.
You know what? I think it is. I like that, so I just look at it into three buckets, and I try to talk very simple about it. And sorry if I wasn't so simple. I think clients kind of get it. I just don't think they're used to seeing like that waterfall down or up. And once they understand that they can do it, it's about guiding them. How do you make that leap?
Yeah.
How do you make that jump? And that's where partnership comes in again.
Partnership, right? Yeah. So same question,
Same
digital
question.
side. So the question was, what was my question?
Yeah, the funnel.
Has the funnel changed?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for us, it has. Organic YouTube is a great opportunity to tell your story, but we apply DR tactics that help in a subtle, appropriate way. We actually have 7 specific tactics that we use in order to drive action. And if you want to know what they are, you got to talk to me. But so we are trying to move that more top of the funnel organic foundation to more direct response action. And we're having some pretty good success with it. Absolutely. We also layer in paid when appropriate.
Okay.
So it's important to do it carefully because paid within YouTube can sabotage your organic build if you do it too soon or too heavy.
So the good news is that the 4 o'clock session canceled, so we can go for like another hour and a half.
You got like
goodness.
5 more questions.
Yeah.
Really, prime best one.
Before I give it back to Tom, anything that I didn't bring up that you think is you wanted to talk about?
What were those questions? Yeah. Do you want me to look?
Yeah, please.
Upside down. Let me go to the end.
This will
because
give
that's
JR
probably-
a great time to talk about partnerships.
Yeah, partnerships.
Yes. Oh, collaborations between brands and vendors.
Partnerships.
We called it something a little bit different. We talked about testing and scale and building trust with skeptical customers. I think we
I think we covered it.
I think we covered most of it.
Good job. Tom?
But questions for the audience, yeah.
Questions from the audience, anyone?
Somebody has to have one. I'll pick somebody.
Yeah, I mean, look. Nope.
If you don't volunteer.
We
She
got
leaves
one
the
here
room.
and then one back there.
Hello, Michael Weinstein with Gem Direct. Thank you guys, this was great. More for Greg, but if anyone else has comments on it. Are you seeing a change in the consumer behavior? So DRTV, when we would send people to a landing page, it was that focused, get the order first, post-transaction upsells and that whole thing. Then there's the brands that have the multi-SKUs available on one page, all that. Has the shopping experience from what you're seeing changed at all?
No, I think the marketing, this applies 100 years from now. Marketing fundamentals stand. and a landing page-esque, right? So that there might be different nuances year after year or decade after decade, but to make it clear to a consumer that they are here to purchase the product, to give them a compelling offer. The offer is still king. To give them trust and some sort of credibility, to give them some social proof, all the things that you would have been doing years ago, they still apply. That the channels change all the time, and maybe why somebody is on the channel has changed. You're on TikTok for a very different reason, a very different moment of opportunity than you used to be watching worldwide world of sports. I had to pick an old thing, back in the 80s on Channel 5, right? So yeah, that's a very different experience, but if you didn't have a compelling offer, a good pitch for a product that solved a real problem, you're not selling in either decade.
Oh my gosh, you still have to solve a problem, don't you?
Right.
Yep, and you got to be clear about that.
So I think you mentioned content a little bit earlier. So have you seen particular types of content working better in terms of, for example, UGC versus brand representative founder message versus animation versus whatever else?
It's a great question.
It's a really good question, and I would say the answer is no. I think it is so dependent upon your category, your product offering. Like I said, we typically start with a very deep dive audit, and it looks literally it looks at everything, traffic sources, keywords, the competitive set, and we create, usually it's 3, sometimes it's 4, pillar contents. Very often, one of those is the UGC testimonial review type copy. Another is often sort of brand story, the description of why you exist in the world. And then sometimes it's explainer and unboxings and things like that. But we would look at the assets of the client and make a decision as to whether that message is delivered by whom. And we also really believe in pulling an influencer as well. Influencer is great. So I would say that without a deeper dive into that individual product, I could never say that I know that it matters one way or the other broadly. Yeah, what age they are, what your target is. Yeah, absolutely.
We got one more over here.
Enjoyed all the information and where the customers are. Seems like they're in a lot of different places.
They are.
A question for Mary Ann. You've mentioned that for the DR and the call to action now,
yes.
And how hard it is. They won't use offer codes. They won't go to their websites. Are you testing anything on YouTube that has like text us with potentially like a live chat or an AI chatbot that would answer the questions right then and there?
I will say that in general, we have not found great success with drive to phone or drive to text. We've had pretty good sex with text. She does a lot of cool things on her success. Yes. Pretty good success. We're editing that out. Just so you know. Pretty good success with QR codes.
Okay.
That take you to a lander where maybe you could engage with a chat bot or encourage a phone call. And I think that is also true with Meta. I think that they also, all of the Meta experts and our Meta buyer, same thing, always strongly discourage any kind of a call to action that's pick up the phone or text.
Right.
Which is weird to me because you are asking them to pick up the phone and scan the TV screen if you're watching YouTube. By the way, just so y'all know, YouTube is now viewed about 50% on the smart screen. It's gone it used to be heavily mobile. It's driven more and more towards the big screen.
So I have a story. So this is not an answer, but it fundamentally changed my opinion of certain aspects of a landing page in e-commerce in 2025. We ran a campaign for a medical thing, right? Supplement-ish type thing. And there was a order now, go to Michael's question, classic DRTV. But at the bottom was a form that if you have a question, name, email address, and what's your question. And I was looking at the questions that were coming in daily, and I was shocked at what people were asking and what they were willing to provide. Full medical histories, I mean, they were giving so much information, and they were asking questions like, how do I order? They had to skip like 11 order now buttons that are practically blinking on the screen. Go to the very bottom and fill out a form saying, how do I order? So the AI chatbot side of things, this will come across poorly, but it has to be able to deal with a very low denominator of attention span of the people who may be coming to the website. And I think when you're dealing with a click-to-call or something, at least a lot of times it's a human being that they're speaking with. But an AI chatbot is certainly for any sort of supplement where somebody might present their medical history to you. I'd be very cautious. It's a frontline thing, and the front line sometimes isn't very bright.
I think the ones that I have seen that work best is when you only go 2 or 3 deep, and then they're filtering you off to a live agent.
Sure.
That's, you know.
And I'm all AI. Like, I love it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But it was
Greg does love
eye-opening.
AI.
That's all the time we've got. There's a very nimble description of not very bright.
I'm trying to tiptoe around it.
How about a round of applause for our group here? Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.